Negasi Beyene may actually be one in a million. He was born in Tigray, Ethiopia, and was a young man when he was presented with two difficult choices. One, join a local armed group and go to war with the then Ethiopian government, or stay out of politics and take his chances. It's a story of courage. I sit down with Negasi Beyene next. So Negasi, it really seems like you're one in a million, or very rare, as someone who was born in Tigray but who found out early on that there were inconsistencies in the TPLF cause and chose academics over joining the war, even though it was a very turbulent time for Ethiopia under the Derg, particularly the Red Terror. So how rare are you, and why do you think you are rare?
Well, it's very hard to judge about myself that I'm rare, but I think most people joined the rebellion physically, or maybe like in towns, like they were part of the TPLF at that time. So for me, it was a tense time. I mean, especially during the Red Terror time, I have to decide. Because when I went to Johannes to school, then I saw two bodies on left and right at the entrance of the school. And then I was shocked, because I was focused on school, and then I see these two bodies, and I thought, oh, am I studying to be like them? And then I have to do something. I have to decide. And then I have to decide fast. So I was reading day and night, I started with the TPLF's manifesto, and then I read also the APRP's papers. So mostly I found a flaw about the TPLF when they deciding, they were asking a national question. The TPLF was saying our question is national question. So to be a national question in the communist time, they have 5 characteristics to be a nation. So 4 of them they fulfilled because language, culture, geographical area, social makeup, they fulfilled that. But it asks a developed economy. Then when they say about the developed economy, they say, okay, we have telecommunication, we have roads, we have electric, we have some mining some raw materials that can be mined, which is not reasonable when I see it now. But I thought, okay, maybe that's how developed mean. I didn't know at the time. But when I went to the chapter 2, it says, because of the Amhara oppression, we didn't develop. That's why we are still poor. So chapter 1 and chapter 2, they contradict each other. So I say, what? They say develop to be a nation, and then because of the oppression of Amhara, they are not developed. So those two didn't match up. They didn't go together. So the most precious gift, or the expensive or precious, is my life. So I don't want to give my life to those people who doesn't know what they are doing. So I say, I will stay, even if Derg kill me, it doesn't matter. I want to die. I will not die for something that I didn't believe, but I will die just what do you call it?
Was kind of a victim of the current situation.
Yeah. I will be a victim of the whatever happens to me, because if you go, you decided, then you knowingly you join, you go to die. But unknowingly or unwillingly, if somebody kills you, then I chose that.
So, do you have memories of Tigray pre-TPLF? I mean, what were the adults around you, your parents or their age, saying about what was forming in that region in terms of the rebels at the time, or what were they perceived as back then?
Most people are independent thinkers in Tigray at that time, including for example, my father or my neighbors. They think differently, and they could argue, and then they could, have consensus, or sometimes if it's difficult, somebody will intervene, and then that's the way it was. It's not like monolith, everybody thinks the same way, like the TPLF was saying or doing for 48 years, Tigrayans they think the same. That's what they perceive, but that's not reality. People are different. People like different foods or different tastes, and people think differently. So thinking different in the society is a good thing if you handle it the way normally, because that's how you develop. That's how you correct each other, because everybody is not perfect. So at that time, people think normally. They are religious. They are not racist. I know, for example, a lot of people come from the central of Ethiopia or southern Ethiopia. We don't even know, oh, this is Oromo or this is blah, blah. If we say everybody is we call Amara, and then there's no differentiate or there's no particular stuff. Nothing. You don't even say, oh, you are Amara or blah. No, okay, where you come from? He say Gondar or Wollo or Wallaga. And nobody minds this, because I know there are some business people from Dorze and from different parts of the Ethiopia. Even though mostly Tigrayans who immigrated to other part of Ethiopia, but there were a number of people from Ethiopia also. They do business in Mekelle and Tigray.
So what happened? What happened to these independent thinkers? I mean, you look at Tigray now, at least on the surface, particularly in the last 2 years of conflict, it does look like it's mostly a monolith, and those that think differently or outspoken about it look like outliers like yourself. So what happened, you think, over the last several decades where that appears to have gone away?
Yeah, I think the main idea is this TPLF, they indoctrinated some people, youngsters especially, or the farmers. But the main thing what they did was they were against religion. They don't believe in a religion because they were communist. That religion itself, they have values. The values is not to kill, not to lie, not to steal. Those all things are, in Muslim or in Christian, there is values. They took away that. And the people who knew the history of Tigray, they knew the history of Ethiopia, they killed them. They just give you, I can give you example. What they did is they, in a village, for example, they go and then we have a meeting. Everybody comes from their huts, and then they meet them, and then they set up 3 or 4 people that they work for them, and they just accuse one of the, for example, the Shemagale or the elderly, and then he was accused, oh, he was insulting TPLF. You guys were, you are trying to die for us, but this person, he was insulting TPLF. And then, whoa, and then the cadre will say, wow, how could you do that? We are just sacrificing for you. And, but we would not say nothing. But what do you think what we should do with this person? They ask the audience. But there is another person they set up somewhere, and he raises his hand, and then, oh, if he did that, he should be killed. Or they call it he should be learned in 006, that's the torture area, the prison. Then they take him away. Nobody hears after that about this person. So there are a lot of people know about it, like in a lot of prison areas. Their torture was very, very, it was worse than the Derg. Hot iron, they put on your back, or they boil oil and they put on their ear, or a lot of stuff, and then they bury them even neck down, and then they run like cows over him, and then some of them also they imprison them in the dark. They don't see any light. They look like white people because they don't get sunlight, and then when they come out, they look like yellowish, malnourished, and then they eventually, after a week or something, they will die. Sometimes they give it to the family, but they know that they will die after a week.
How much of this did you know at the time? I mean, how aware were you of what they were doing and what they call the bush, and what gave you the courage to basically choose not to get involved in politics, and then eventually you were able to get out of the country on scholarship to Russia?
Yeah, the first thing is, like it didn't add up their whatever they're saying. That's one thing. Second, I was more to academics inclined. But I was hearing some, farmers when they come from like the remote area, they were saying like, oh, they torture, they kill the Jazmach or Fitorari or something like that. I was hearing barely, but I didn't verify at the time. But a lot of people that were fighting with them, they testified it after that. So it proves it was right at the time. But it was not confirmed by me, but I was hearing those stuff, that they torture, especially even like the hot iron is just, for any human being, for normal human being, is just kind of very cruel. So then after that, I just, but the first time, I decided not to join them was because of their manifesto. And those things I was hearing, but barely, because Mekelle was far away from where they were, so you barely hear that. In any case, I also read about the PRP. I want to go to PRP, and their slogan was like, education after struggle. And I like education. In any country, how could they say that? You stop education and you just fight. That doesn't make sense.
Education after struggle. So that didn't add up to you either.
It didn't add up.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you go to, you were in high school at the time in Tigray. You eventually go to Addis Ababa, where you had the option to go into the university there because you did well. Yeah. You chose to instead be a teacher temporarily for 6 months until your scholarship went through in Russia. And then eventually you ended up coming here under political asylum, which you said you didn't really want to do. You thought you were going to go to Russia for 5-6 years, wait this, political situation out. So when you look at Tigray now, or like the people from that region, at least as it looks on the surface, do you recognize it? I mean, has the culture just shifted so far?
I think it did. Even for me, to tell you frankly, I don't want to even to go back. I don't believe, or I don't think I will fit, because everything changes the value of human being. The way you do. I don't know the society even unless there is some change and some re-education, or how do I say it? If the chain, the network, is not dismantled, the TPLF network especially. People are in fear. They don't say what they really want to say. They always say, whatever the party says, whatever it pleases them. So this is very hard. I don't know how they do it. I cannot do that. I think maybe if I were there for whole my life, maybe I would be changed like them. I'm just questioning myself most of the time, but the society is changed. I know everywhere is changed in Ethiopia mostly, after Derg especially, and then after, especially in the TPLF era, it's worst. I mean, there's no value. Everybody wants us to be rich, even, you're killing your associates or whatever. It just, the value of human being is not there. So it's very scary.
Yeah, I want to play a video of you from a recent rally here in Washington, D.C., and then get your thoughts on some of your message there. But first, we'll be right back.
ኢትዮጵያ ላሉያ ላጽ ዮሐንስ ላዕሊ ታሕቲ ኢሎም ክሳዶም ለሃውላ ዓድያ ስለዚ አምሓራይ ጸላኢኻ ይኾነይ ኤርትራ ጸላኢኻ ይኾነይ ዓፋር ጸላኢኻ ይኾነይ ኦሮሞ ጸላኢኻ ይኾነይ ኢትዮጵያ በአጠቃላይ ህዝቢ ሓውና እዩ ይሉሎ እስካብ ሕዚ ናይ TPLF ዝገበርዎ ኣብ ኣምሓራ ኣፋር ከይዶም ዝገበርዎ ግፍዒ ግን ክቋራረፅ ምስ ማንም ጎረቤት ከይትሓዊ ከይትፅሕር ከይትጠራረብ ዝገብርዎ ነገሩ እዚ ካብ ምዕራባውያን ዝተደፉ ግበሩ ተባሃሉ ወይም ዝገብሩ ኣለው። ስለዚ ልቢ ጌርና ህዝብና ሰላም እዩ ዝደሊ፣ ህዝብና ፍቅሪ እዩ ዝደሊ፣ ህዝብና ማዕርነት እዩ ዝደሊ። ንማዕርነት ድማ ብሰላም ክንቃለሶ ንኽእል ኢና። ኢትዮጵያ ሁል ጊዜ ትስዕር። ለሚነግዱትና ለ50 ዓመታት በግዞት ለያዙ የልጆችህ ህይወት በገፍ ለነጠቁ የሽፍታ ቡድን በቃ ልትላቸው ይገባል። ለትግራይ ተወላጆች ዳያስፖራ ልጆችህን አቅፈህ እያደርክ የደሃ ልጆች አልቀው ስሜትህን ለማርካት ሀገር ማፍረስና ህዝብን መበተን የሰይጣን ስራ ነውና ከህዝብ ጎን እንድትቆምና የህወሓት መሪዎችን በቃችሁ በላቸው። ከሁሉም ወገኖችህ ተጣልተህ ምንም አይነት ህይወት ለትግራይ ህዝብ እየተመኘለት ነው። ጥያቄ ነው። ምዕራባውያን ለትግራይ ህዝብ አስበው ሳይሆን ለጥቅማቸው ሲሉ እኛ ኢትዮጵያውያን በአጠቃላይ አፍሪካውያን እርስ በርስ ብንጨራረስ ጉዳያቸው ሆኖ አያውቅም። ወደ ልቦናህ ተመለስ። ኢትዮጵያ አያቶችህ ደማቸው ከፍለው ያቆዩት ሀገር መሆኗን አትዘንጋ። እግዚአብሔር ኢትዮጵያና ህዝቧን ይጠብቅ።
Welcome back. I'm here with Negasi, Beyene. And Negasi, we just played a video of you from a rally in Washington, D.C., essentially giving a message to the people of Tigray. What was your message, if you could just encapsulate, and how much hope do you have that people will actually hear it?
Yeah, my message was mainly like Tigray is part and parcel of Ethiopia. It has been like that. It never seceded from Ethiopia in history, in this 3,000 back history. So for Tigrayans, for the ordinary people especially, it helps them to be united with their brothers and sisters in Ethiopia. That's the way it should be. TPLF is taking their daughters and sons' life for 48 years. So it should be enough. That was the message, and probably most Tigrayans don't pay attention to is, the Western countries, they want us to fight each other. Amara versus Tigray, Tigray versus Oromo, blah, blah. And then we are now going to focus on development, to develop ourselves, to feed ourselves. We are rich. Africa is a rich country, a continent. So that we could self-sufficiently, we could help ourselves, we could develop. So for that, we have to solve our problems through discussion, through compromise. So that's the way it should be. That's the best for Tigrayan people. That's what I believe in. So.
You mentioned, if you were in Tigray under these conditions, maybe you will have just kind of fallen in line with what everybody was saying. But it seems like even in the diaspora, where you assume people have a lot more freedom, the propaganda is pretty strong, or at least it's the same type of narrative that you described from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So how do you explain that?
It's very hard to explain because a lot of people, my friends from other part of Ethiopia, they ask me, how come the diaspora is doing that? Okay, we understand that the people in Tigray are a hostage of TPLF. What about this people of Tigray or Tigrayan people in diaspora? I could not answer myself. I don't have any answer because they live in a democratic country. They know how it works, the system. So they should wish to their people the same system that, resolving conflict or resolving differences through talking or through a good system. Ethiopia or other countries should have a democratic infrastructure. And if we have strong democratic infrastructure, then that's the only solution. If you have power today, you will not have it forever. If you have power and you oppress others, and then when you lose your power, others will oppress you again. So that's not the way to go. We will go on a vicious cycle. Instead of that, the diasporas also should think, because they live in democratic countries, most of them, but they still are supporting TPLF. And TPLF, for the people of Tigray, they gave like maybe 5 war. The first 17 years of war, like to come to power, and then the war with Eritrea, and then 3 wars with the federal government. We lost like almost, people say, it's unverifiable, but 800,000 youngsters are died from Tigray only, alone, not counting the other side. What do we gain? What did Tigray gain? So why we are supporting the same system, the same network for 48 years? So I always, on my speeches, I ask diaspora to focus and then to just stand with their people, not with the mafia group.
You know, you mentioned when you were younger and there was this question presented to you whether you were going to go with TPLF or not. A lot of young people heard the music that went with it that really made the whole cause sound very romantic, and they didn't read the manifesto in many cases like you did. What was it about that time? Was there another time besides now or besides when the TPLF came into power that the people of Tigray could have done more to resist this group getting bigger, or were there outside hands that just made this inevitable?
By the way, the people resisted as much as they can. The first 5, 6, 10 years, they were even throwing stones at them. Get out of our area. We don't want you. People were resisting. But there was also outside interference, because there was Derg. Derg is a communist, even though TPLF was a communist, but the Western, they play that game, so they want to get rid of Derg, so they were supporting TPLF. So in that support, they were showing them all what they will do financially and everything. So that's when especially like I mentioned, after the famine, they become very strong, because financially they're strong. They bought a new armament, and Western was helping them. After that, a lot of rich people, or not rich people even, the farmers that can feed themselves, they were eliminating them, or they make them poor, because they say they accuse them of something. Like I told you, they use the same system. They put 2, 3 people somewhere among the audience, among the people, and they accuse the person, and then, okay, you did this, so $10,000 birr. 10,000 birr at that time is like enormous. So he will sell his cow, he will sell whatever he have, even he will sell his brothers, his sisters, so everybody is poor. Then when everybody is poor, they don't have nothing, so they depend on the handouts of TPLF. So that's how they control the people. If you are economically, if you could survive by yourself, TPLF knows that you could have your own mind. You will be out of control of them, so they don't like that. So that's how people, make them like in the same, to line up in the same.
That reminds me of the fact that about a third of the Tigray region was living under a safety net even before this war started. I mean, do you see this kind of more of the same continuing on, or is there something about the current moment that gives you hope that things, while they might take time, will change?
No, see, like you said, the one amazes me a lot is like, they ruled Ethiopia 27 years. Tigray, including the federal, they are upper hand, the government at the federal too. But during this time, Tigray even cannot feed itself. Like you say, 30%, that's their data. That's TPLF's data I'm talking about. I'm not talking about some outside data. TPLF's data, 30% of Tigrayan people, they live under safety net. What does that mean? For example, during this government, Abiy, I see what they grow in Somalia. in Afar. And Afar and Somalia are more drier than Tigray. The wheat that they grow to self-sufficient. So 27 years they stayed in power. They didn't even make Tigray to self-sufficient, by food, or to grow its own food. But they are begging, the help didn't come, the aid didn't get through because of blah, blah. They should be ashamed of themselves. 27 years. And no water even for Mekelle. It's a capital city, there's no drinking water. So what did the people of Tigray gain? That's always my question. So now, I hope this should be changed. In my opinion, TPLF should not be in any political position to decide the fate of Tigrayans.
Even if TPLF goes away, do you think it would actually shift? Because after they signed the peace deal, although there's many issues with it, I think people have about it, the people themselves were actually, at least as we could see online, there's only so much we could see on the ground, but the people were actually upset with that peace deal. So it seems even if you got rid of this organization, maybe the network would still be there. It's almost like a self-fulfilling mechanism. Like it's already automated. Do you think that, how different do you think it will be if this political group is out of the picture?
I think it will take time. Of course, it's obvious that even if TPLF is not functionally or politically, the mindset of the people, like you said, is already in that mindset. But my hope is, if TPLF is not controlling the Killil or the Tigray, then maybe people will be free. They always are suspicious, because they tell them, no matter what, we will get you. They even recently, the military, the federal is in Shira area or in a lot of parts. In that area, they write a note to the people who try to communicate with the federal government or with the military. They send them a note. Hey, don't forget, we are still here. Still now. So my hope is, if there is dysfunction, I know there is a lot of work to do, but it will be easier for the people. There is no more TPLF, I can say whatever. At least that's what my hope is. But there is a chunk of people that will still be the same. Even few people will be until their days. But majority, they want to live good life. They will see the development of what's going on in Ethiopia. So they don't want to give their sons and daughters every 10 years or every 6 years. So I hope, that's my hope is, they are fearful of TPLF because it's networked and they get you. By the way, they will get you. Some Tigrayans, they try to speak out. Even if they didn't arrest them, they will prevent them not to get a job all over Ethiopia when they were in federal controlling. They don't get a job. They don't get life. They want to make you like a homeless. And then, So some people, they reached out to homelessness even because of that. So
It's a lot. But I mean, as you said, if the network is out of the way, then hopefully that people can make a better choice.
Yeah, that's what my hope is. That's the only thing I hope. At least Tigray people should save themselves. That's what I tried to give for 30 some years a message. It was didn't reach anybody yet, but I hope someday. It's just for the sake for the people, for the ordinary people. Yeah.
For the record, and things do move, change really does happen slowly. So We'll leave it there. Negasi, Beyene, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Hermela, for inviting me.